What's up, everyone? Jay here with Tap and Turn Gaming, coming at you today with another EDH deck tech. Today's deck is for a mono red deck that's a tribal deck, so big surprise there that I made another tribal deck, but I really just love building them. They're one of my favorite types of decks to build. But anyway, the deck for today is built around this lovely lady right here, Lovisa Coldeyes. She's a 5-cost 3/3 legendary human lord, it says on the card, but she was oracle texted to a human barbarian, and her rules text after the oracle texting reads, warriors, berserkers, and or other barbarians get +2/+2 and have haste. This is more or less a warrior tribal. There are a couple of barbarians slash berserkers. Actually, I'm not sure if there's any berserkers in the deck, but it's predominantly warriors, so it's more or less a tribal warrior deck. But yeah, I mean, she does what she does. You know, she's basically just, you know, there to pump my team and give them haste. So I thought it'd be a pretty fun deck to build. Plus, I also don't have a mono red deck, so you know, I just saw this card and figured it'd be fun to build a tribal deck around, and I think it came out pretty good, and I feel like it'll be a lot of fun to play. But yeah, that's my general Lovisa Coldeyes. First up, we'll take a look at my land base for this deck. Pretty simple, seeing as it's a monocolored deck. So first up we have Great Furnace, just there because I like the art on it, more or less. Then we have Gitu Enchantment because it can become a 2/1 warrior. Kerr Keep, just because it produces 0/1 blockers, which is not bad. Nykthos Shrine to Nyx because we're playing a monocolored deck, so this is just a shoe-in. Shink of the Blood-Soaked Keep to give a legendary creature first strike, which isn't bad. Thespian Stage to copy target land, and I'll show you the land that will always copy once I get to it. Flamekin Village to be able to give a particular creature haste by paying a red and tapping it. And here's the land that I'll always copy with Thespian Stage, Valakut the Molten Pinnacle. If you have 5 other mountains down, whenever you have a mountain enter the battlefield, it will lightning bolt target creature or player. Then we have Rogue's Passage to give stuff unblockable, and then we have 29 basic mountains. So that is my land base. Pretty simple. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, not much to it. Next up, we'll take a look at my artifacts that I run. First up is Soul Ring. Don't need to explain that card and why it's in the deck. Dolmen Gate will prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to my attacking creatures, so this deck is built to be very aggressive and turn guys sideways a lot, so that's a pretty cool card to have. Lightning Greaves to give Lovisa or something else protection. Nim Deathmantle, pretty good creature recursion on a colorless artifact equipment. More or less I just have it in there for that second part where I can pay 4 if a non-token creature I control would die. I can resurrect it for 4 colorless mana, and then that goes right onto it. Worn Power Stone, just a mana rock that taps for 2. Door of Destinies, what tribal deck would be complete without one of these? So it's basically there is just a continuous anthem effect for my warriors, because I will always call warriors on that. Lux Cannon, mono red, has lots of ways to break artifacts, but not much else. So Lux Cannon is in there to get rid of those permanents that I can't normally get rid of. Thran Dynamo, another mana rock that taps for 3. Cauldron of Souls, because red has next to 0 recursion for creatures. So this was a pretty good card to throw in. You can tap this and give any number of creatures persist until end of turn. So if someone would board wipe I can tap this, give all my creatures persist, and then they'll just come back with a -1/-1 counter. Coat of Arms, because this card is really fun. Each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature in play that shares a creature type with it. So if I have, I mean, this also works for your opponents as well, so it can potentially screw you over, but I kept it in the deck in the initial build just because it's a really fun card. If I have 10 warriors on the board, all of them will get +9/+9, so it's pretty nice. I like it. Cryptic Gateway, to tap 2 untap creatures I control and then cheat a creature out of my hand into play that shares a creature type with the creatures that I tapped. Gilded Lotus, another nice mana rock that taps for 3 of any one color. Argentum Armor, more or less kind of fills the same kind of role as Lux Cannon, just being able to destroy permanents that I normally would not be able to destroy with a mono red deck. Cage Sun, obviously I'll always choose red with this, and then my red creatures get +1/+1, and then whenever I tap a land for red, it produces 2 red instead. And we have Obelisk of Erd, just another Anthem effect, but it has Convoke, so that's nice, so I can basically, tap dudes down to pay for its cost, and when it comes in, choose a creature type. Going to be warriors in this deck, and creatures you control the chosen type get +2/+2. So, a shoe-in for a tribal deck. And lastly, Akroma's Memorial. This card's just amazing. Gives all your creatures flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, prot, black, and red. So more or less turns all of your creatures into Akromas. So those are my artifacts. Next up, we'll take a look at my enchantments of the deck. First up is Hammer of Perforos. Could be argued that I could have had this in my artifact package because it is a enchantment artifact, but I decided to throw it in with the enchantments. But anyways, it's more or less there to give my team haste. And then that secondary ability, I've never had to use it, but I generally play this card over Fervor, even though Fervor is less mana intensive to actually cast. This is double red, and Fervor is just 2 and a red. Not that it would really matter in a mono red deck, but just having that secondary ability where, if the situation arises where my opponent tries to destroy one of my lands, I can, respond and use this and sack it to get a 3/3 creature token. So it's not bad. Here's Aggravated Assault. Basically will let me get an additional combat phase and main phase for paying 3 and 2 red. This card's really, really nice. Generally if you cast this, it's probably going to be a big target and someone will try to remove it. But, you could play this late game and then activate it right away if you have the mana, get an additional combat step. Usually if you go to more than one combat step, you're probably, in your mind, you're going to win the game. So it's a pretty nice card to have. Here we have Goblin War Drums. It's a very old card. It's got a lot of text on it, but more or less it just makes it so that your creatures can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. So that's very nice. Here's Null Spine Invocation. 3 cost red enchantment that lets you pay X and discard a card with converted mana cost X. And this deals X damage to entire creature or player. So more or less just in there for creature removal. Shared Animosity, amazing card for any kind of tribal deck. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. So, pretty nice card to have. Pyrohemia. If there are no creatures on the board at the beginning of the end step, this gets sacrificed, but it lets you pay a red to deal 1 damage to each creature and each player. So it's a pretty versatile card. Obviously it's going to hit your creatures too, but if your opponent is kind of locking you down and not letting you have many creatures on the board, this is pretty nice to have to ping each player and every creature on the board. Gratuitous Violence, a one-sided damage doubler for 2 and 3 red. So it basically only works for my creatures. If a creature you control would deal damage to a creature or player, it deals double that damage instead. So a one-sided Furnace of Wrath is pretty sweet. Here we have Warstorm Surge. Whenever one of my dudes comes in, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player. So very nice enchantment to have. And Rage Reflection, creatures you control have double strike. With it being a super aggressive deck, dropping that and giving all my guys double strike is going to hurt a lot for my opponent. Next up are my Sorceries. I actually don't run any instants in this deck, but, which I'll have to play with the deck and see if, there's any maybe kind of like spot removal burn that I might want to play in the deck, but I feel like it has a pretty decent amount of removal. But here's my sorcery package nonetheless. We have Shattering Spree, 1-cost red sorcery, destroy target artifact with Replicate, so every time I pay its Replicate cost I can copy it. So this is a pretty cool card if there's a lot of artifacts on the board. Then we have Disaster Radius, more or less a one-sided sweeper. It's kind of like Plague Wind, except you reveal a creature card from your hand, and then this deals X damage to each creature your opponents control, where X is the revealed card's converted mana cost. So if you cast that and reveal an 8-cost creature out of your hand, all your opponent's creatures take 8 damage. Blasphemous Act. If you're playing red in EDH, you're more than likely playing this card, I'd imagine. It deals 13 damage to each creature, and it costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the board. And Chain Reaction deals X damage to each creature, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. So with the sorceries, more or less 3 sweepers and 1 spell that can break lots of artifacts. Next up, we'll take a look at my 2 planeswalkers that I run in the deck. We run Chandra Nalaar, the original Chandra, a 5-cost red planeswalker with 6 loyalty. You can +1 to deal 1 damage to target player, or -X to deal X damage to target creature, or -8. She deals 10 damage to target player and each creature they control. So, more or less just in there for burn, and more burn. Being able to ping your opponent is nice, but more or less I have her in here for the ability to deal X damage to a creature, and then if I get her to -8, my opponent's going to take 10, and all their creatures are more or less going to die unless they are indestructible or if they have higher than 10 toughness. And then we run Koth of the Hammer, a 4-cost red planeswalker with 3 loyalty. +1, you can untap target mountain and becomes a 4/4 red dude until end of turn. It's still a land. You can -2 to get red to your mana pool for each mountain you control, which is really nice. And then you can -5 to get an emblem that makes it so that your mountains can tap to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. So he's pretty cool. So those are the 2 planeswalkers that I run. Lastly, we will take a look at my creature base. With it being tribal warriors, the majority of these cards will be warriors. So we have Bloodmark, Mentor, just there to give my team haste, because all my creatures are red, so red creatures you control have... I'm sorry, I said haste, I meant first strike. Give my team first strike, not haste. So he's pretty cool. Bright Hearth Banneret, basically there to lower the casting cost of my warriors by 1. He has that ability where I can discard him and pay 2 to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. Probably never going to activate that. He's very nice. He lowers the casting cost of all my guys by 1. Goblin War Driver, he's got Battle Cry, so whenever he attacks, all my other attacking dudes get +1/+0. Kargan Dragonlord, he's got level up for 1 red, so he'll start off as level 0. If he gets to level 4/7. Sorry, he's a 4/4 flyer. If he gets to level 8 or higher, he's an 8/8 flyer with trample with fire breathing. So very nice. Adaptive Automaton, a creature that I play in every single one of my tribal decks. When he comes in, you choose a creature type, going to be warriors with this deck. He is the chosen creature type in addition to his other type, construct, and creatures you control the chosen type get +1/+1, so he's basically an anthem effect on a body. Archetype of Aggression gives all my creatures trample and makes it so that my opponent's creatures lose trample and can't have or gain trample. Here's Inner Flame Igniter. I can pay 2 and a red to give my team +1/+0 until end of turn. And then if I resolve that ability 3 times, my team also gains first strike. So, I mean, it's possible to get that, that 3 times of activating it and giving all your dudes first strike. But, I mean, just being able to give my entire team +1/+0 for 3 ain't bad. Here's Markov Blademaster, a 3-cost 1/1 with double strike, and when it deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. It's a pretty nice card, so if you swing in as a 1/1 and it hits your opponent, it's going to deal first strike damage. It's going to see that it hit a player, so it's going to get a +1/+1 counter, and then it's going to hit your opponent again. So just first up off the bat, as it is, it'll hit your opponent for 3, and then it starts getting more and more and more at that point. Here's one of the few barbarians in the deck, Balduvian Warlord, a 4-cost 3/2, where I can basically tap him to remove a blocking creature from combat and then make it so that the creatures it was blocking become unblocked, and then the creature that I just removed from combat that was blocking blocks another creature. So he's pretty tricky. You can do tricky things with him. Here's Beetleback Chief, 4-cost 2/2 that brings 2 1/1 red goblins when he comes in. So just brings friends. He's a 2/2 that brings friends. Cyclops Gladiator, a 4-cost 4/4 that when he attacks, I may have it deal damage equal to its power to target creature. Defending player controls, and then if I do, that creature deals damage equal to its power back to him, so they essentially fight, and it's a you may, so I could just swing in with him for 4, and then if my opponent's sitting on a creature that's maybe doing something static, I can attack in with him. If I know that he will kill that creature if he fights it, I can activate that ability. Here's Jessica Warrior Adept, 4-cost 3/1 with haste and first strike that can ping a creature or player, so nothing crazy, but she's pretty cool. Here is Laccolith Warrior. His creature type doesn't say that he's a warrior, but he was Oracle texted 2/1. But he's a 3/3 that when he becomes blocked, you may have him deal damage equal to its power to target creature. If you do, he assigns no combat damage this turn, so more or less if he gets blocked, you can redirect that 3 damage at another creature if you like, and then he just deals no damage in combat. So he's pretty nice. Ogre Battle Driver, a 4-cost 3/3. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under my control, it gets +2/+0 and gains haste. Very, very nice. Paragon of Fierce Defiance, basically a anthem effect for all my dudes because they're all red, and then I can pay a red and tap him to give another red creature haste. Pardek Arsonist, a 4-cost 3/3 that if I have Threshold, which is 7 or more cards in my graveyard, when he comes in he lightning bolts target creature or player, so that's pretty cool. Perforos, he's just awesome. A 4-cost 6/5 that's indestructible. If my devotion to red is less than 5, he's not a dude, but even if he's not a dude, he's very imposing. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under my control, he deals 2 damage to each opponent, and then he's kind of got that same ability as Inner Flame Igniter, where I can pay 2 and a red and give my team +1/+0. So that's pretty nice. Next we have Vengeful Firebrand, a 4-cost 5/2 that has haste as long as a warrior card is in my graveyard, which pretty good possibility of that. So he'll usually always have haste when he's on the board, and he's got fire breathing, so he's pretty cool. Falkenroth Marauders, a 5-cost 2/2 with flying and haste, and when it hits a player, he gets 2 +1/+1 counters. Flame Rush Rider, when it attacks, I can put a token onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking, that's a copy of another target attacking creature, and I can dash it for 2 and 2 red, and it's a 3/3. So he's pretty cool. You know, you can attack with a bunch of stuff, and him copy one of your attacking guys and put it in tapped and attacking. It's pretty nice. Fury Stoke Giant, a 5-cost 3/3. When he comes into play, other creatures you control gain tap it, and they shock target creature or player until end of turn. He can potentially end a game for you if you have a lot of creatures on the board. Here's Kazoo, Tyrant of the Cliffs, a 5-cost 5/4. Whenever a creature an opponent controls attacks, if you're the defending player, you get a 3/3 red ogre creature token onto the board unless that creature's controller pays 3. So more or less kind of deters your opponent from wanting to attack into you unless they want you to get 3/3 red ogre creature tokens. Here is Tarngarth, Talrim Hero. He's a 5-cost 4/4 with Vigilance. And you can pay 1 and a red and tap him, and he deals damage equal to his power to target creature, and then that creature deals damage equal to its power to him, so they fight, essentially. So, you know, if you have a bunch of Anthem effects on the board and make him bigger, he can start taking out creatures for you. Here is Volshock Battlemaster, pretty fun card, a 5-cost 2/2 with haste. When it comes into play, attach all equipment in play to it. That includes your opponent's equipments, so, you know, if there's like 6 equipments on the board, you play this, all those equipments just immediately get attached to this, and it has haste, so you could, you know, catch your opponent off guard with this. The only kind of downfall to it is that the control of the equipment doesn't change, so, you know, it's kind of a one-trick pony. You know, you play this, all the equipments in play get attached to it. If you steal some of your opponent's stuff on their turn, they can just pay the equip cost and move it to one of their creatures. But nonetheless, a pretty cool card. Here's Wrecking Ogre, a 5-cost 3/3 with Double Strike. And then it also has Blood Rush, so you can pay 3 and 2 red and discard it to give target attacking creature +3/+3 and Double Strike. Here we have Zealous Conscripts, a pretty nice card, a 5-cost 3/3 with haste. And when it enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent until end of turn, untap it, it gains haste until end of turn. I like this card a lot because it's target permanent, so you can essentially steal anything that your opponent has on the board and take it until end of turn. So I've actually used this card, if any of you saw the gameplay of my Time deck up against Derek's Daxos and Melitus deck. He played a Elspeth Tyrell. On his turn, he used the minus ability to get 3 1/1 white soldiers, and then on my turn I played Zealous Conscripts, stole the Elspeth Tyrell, used the minus ability to remove all of its loyalty counters to essentially kill it and get soldier tokens. So the Zealous Conscripts is very nice. Here is Impelled Giant, a 6-cost 3/3 with Trample, where you can tap and untap red creature you control other than Impelled Giant, and then he gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the power of the creature you tapped. So he's pretty sweet. Here's Boldweir Intimidator, a 7-cost 5/5 that makes it so that cowards can't block warriors, and then you can pay a red to give... to make it so that target creature's type becomes coward until end of turn, and then you can pay 2 and a red, target creature's type becomes warrior until end of turn. Well, all my guys are already warriors, so I generally never need to activate that second ability, But that first ability where I can pay a red and make a creature a coward so that they can't block any of my creatures, you can end a game with this guy. Here's Kamal Pit Fighter, 6 cost, 6/1 with haste that you can tap to Lightning Bolt. So he's pretty cool. And then lastly, we have Hamletback Goliath, a 7 cost, 6/6 that whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you may put X +1/+1 counters on him, where X is that creature's power. It doesn't have to be one of your creatures, it's any creature. So he can get monstrous very, very quickly. Alright, and that is it. That is the deck, guys. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you know, throw out a like and a comment. If you're not already subscribed to our channel, we really appreciate it if you would crush that subscribe button. But that is my Lovisa Coldeyes EDH deck tech. Again, hope you enjoyed it. It was really fun for me to build this deck. You know, like I've said many, many times in the past, I just love building tribal decks. It's just one of the, you know, more fun types of decks for me to build. And I feel like this deck could be very, very fun to play. I haven't actually got a chance to play it yet, but I feel like it could be pretty fun. You know, the idea of the deck is, you know, pretty straightforward. You just, you know, get a bunch of dudes on the board and get your general and just, you know, make them bigger and just turn them sideways and smash face. So I mean, that's more or less the plan that the deck has in mind. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Let me know what you think of my deck. Any suggestions of cards that you would, you know, add in and stuff like that. You know, let me know. I really like to hear your suggestions. So this has been Jay with Tap and Turn Gaming. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and we'll catch you later. Thanks a lot.